is like a no-till gardening that focuses on cover crops and things like that, and instead of tilling deep, they just spade it over lightly just to turn it over. They don't go into the sub-depths, because the way gardens work is all the nutrients are essentially in the top 3-4 inches, and then as you go down it gets less and less. So when you dig in and you spade up and you turn it over, you're turning all those nutrients into the lower parts of the soil, where you want the nutrients to be in the top 3 to 4 inches. That's why this is such a great way, because you're adding all the nutrients to the top of the soil. So, and then worms, you can never have enough worms. They're amazing at keeping your soil aerated, and you need air in your soil, and that's why we all love worms. I think this. And then this one here is again seaweed and a bit of leaves.
Wow, looks like a looks like an elephant dropping to me. I've seen one of those come out. It's like, what's that all about? Instant gardening.
It's easy to harvest and plentiful anywhere type of thing.
Well, we're lucky because we live on the coast, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a benefit that we have. Like the way I did it is like I had no money to build my soil, so I had to think, well, how can I do it without spending money on these companies
on product.
And they call it topsoil, which essentially it isn't topsoil, because
it's nothing.
They're doing composting and things, but a lot of the compost that goes into the soils that you buy are stuff that I wouldn't touch. Because it's all commercial compost. And
I'm clutching my heart.
I don't know, like
what happens when they
it doesn't even, it looks like there's no manure in it.
Well, they steam sterilize it all in the end. Wouldn't that kill all the microorganisms?
Yeah, right.
I did an experiment. I bought 3 different types of yard of each and grew food in it, and kale were like this big, and we couldn't grow broccoli, nothing. So it was like 5.5 acidity. It was really acidic.
So you did just a little test of what's available and did a test.
I moved here from Tofino, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to build my soil, how am I going to do it? First truckload I bought was $350, and I couldn't grow anything in it.
Right.
When you use manure, you have to be really careful where your manure comes from. It has to come from happy animals. I wouldn't be putting enslaved animal manure in here.
And oh my gosh, I'm getting like a total, that's totally right, of course.
And you know what's interesting? I've been at Jay's house.
Of course.
The goats were so calm, they're like babies.
That makes so much sense.
I've never seen chickens that calm.
And then this is my capper here.
Amazing.
The carbon mix to top it all off.
Right on, man.
No, they're just happy, like you said. They're happy.
This is quite an amazing pizza slice you're making, like a raw food pizza slice. That's incredible.
It's all sea lettuce. Yeah, I collected, doesn't matter. Sea lettuce is really good. Any sort of seaweed's great because of the low cellulose. So right away, that's going to be breaking down and turns essentially into slime. It has quite the smell to it too. But I'm also going to be putting more shredded leaves. Like once this workshop's done, I'm going to be putting more shredded leaves on this. It's just the leaves are so wet, they weren't shredding properly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this get soaked for 2 weeks approximately, and I'm going to put a black tarp over it, because composting ceases when it's too wet or too dry. So there's like a really happy medium with composting. So in this, like all my compost piles at home are covered now, because once they get too wet, it drowns microorganisms and they stop doing their work. So it's a way of preventing all the moisture, or it's a way of preventing it. And then I also use black tarps, and that way, when the sun does come out, it's adding more warmth to the pile.
If you already use a lot of seaweed, what would be like the most important things to use to balance it out?
Leaves. Yeah, shredded leaves. For sure. The reason I use leaves is because they're everywhere, and pound for pound, shredded leaves actually have more trace nutrients and minerals than manure. If you think about how much a pound of leaves is compared to a pound of manure is. So I actually found that out from an organic farmer in New Zealand, and he used leaves to build the fertility in his soil. And the reason he did it is just because it's free. You just go and collect them. And they're essentially everywhere, right? So this time of year...
Well, that's why they are everywhere.
Be
for
careful though,
the plants.
Them. Don't do it along roadsides with oil or in parks. And what I do is I just collect big piles of them and I run them over with my lawnmower. And if you use whole leaves, they take 2 years to break down. If you shred them, they're done in 6 months. So it's one of the.
Are there certain varieties that are really good?
I like the big leaf maples. Oak leaves are good. One that you should not use is what's that?
The oak leaves are very acidic.
Yeah, but if you're using lime, like if you're like when I put the coffee grinds down, if you're always adding lime, then you're always putting that calcium in that buffers it all out. Black walnuts grow, nothing grows underneath them because their leaves drop and they release this chemical, and it completely prevents anything from seeding into it. So if you have any black walnuts, just leave the black walnut leaves underneath. But yeah, I'd say big leaf maples are probably the one I use the most, just because they're everywhere and their leaves and they have huge root systems that bring all the nutrients from the ground right up top, so you're getting all the trace minerals, selenium, magnesium, all those phosphorus, all that stuff you're getting organically without having to buy fertilizers.
Interesting. A lot of people have been capping maple syrup out of the maple trees around.
Yeah, that's amazing. I totally agree with that. That's awesome. And then I cap the whole thing off with a little bit more lime. And that's it. You got a sheet mulch garden. So in the springtime, what I'd do is I'd take the tarp off my garden, off this, and I'd grab my little rake and I would kind of rake out the material. Some of it's not going to be completely broken down, most of it will. So the stuff that isn't completely broken down I use in between my rows as a weed preventer. And then you don't have to deal with all the nasty weeds that will be popping up.
Right.
And it's also good when this pile is sitting to not walk on it, because you want the aeration to be coming up.
So it's not so good to stomp all over.
Yeah, you don't want to stomp on it too much. But that's a big thing, because the compost, they need water, they need food, and they need aeration.
Right.
So those are the 3 key things. So they got lots of food, they're going to be getting lots of water as soon as this workshop's over.
Looks like sun.
Yeah, and then they're getting sun, and then...
Right on time. Thanks, light man.
Awesome.
That's the light man up there.
And then like I said, that's perfect. Yeah. And then like I said, getting a black tarp over this is perfect because it prevents too much moisture from getting into our piles. So that's one of the big ones, because if it gets too saturated, the whole process is cold and water. It's the 2 big ones in the winter that we have to...
Right.
Protects it from wind too, I would imagine. You don't want to have like a huge windstorm and all that stuff gets blowing off.
Yeah. No, I'm going to put a tarp and some rocks around it, and then that will seal the deal on it. So, yeah. But this is just a great way of composting, because you're essentially doing what you do in a compost pile, and you're taking advantage of the time of year. You're working with nature, because nature's doing this all around us right now. It's dropping all their leaves. All the vegetation is going back in. So that's why I say in the fall time, mimic nature. Like nature's showing us what she's doing, dropping her leaves, and it's the same for us too. It's time for us to go inwards, not be so busy in our minds. Take a break for that. It's time for us to do the same, I think.
Yeah, the days get shorter.
Yeah, let's go inward.
Yeah.
And that's what this is going to be doing.
And it needs water, sun, or what was the other thing?
It needs water, sun, and aeration, and food. Yeah. And the food is the carbon and the nitrogen. Yeah. So any questions?
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That was. Yeah, it's like beautiful to look at too, isn't it?
You mean he's beautiful to look at?
Well, it's done yet, just
inside and out, I'm sure.
I don't know, I'm full of dirt. That's